prior to F&F and twerking on headlights, and you and your girls in the hood with the video.
Yeah.
Were you putting out rap records around Memphis? Was that your thing?
Yeah, like I was known in Memphis.
Yeah.
For how long? How far back?
I'll say I started getting notoriety in like...
Glorilla just put her own sister on blast in a brand new track, and her sister said enough is enough and fired back. This ain't no Twitter beef, this ain't no he said she said, this is blood dissing blood on wax, and now blood is responding to blood on record.
That's not right. You don't sit here and talk about struggles, sit here and struggle with. It's not one sibling, you got 9 other siblings. She get her money just because she got plenty other in Memphis.
We got lyrics, we got receipts, we got the full breakdown of what went down between these two Memphis women. And fam, this story is deeper than just two sisters beefing over a song. This goes back years. This goes back to money, loyalty, family trauma, and what happens when somebody blows up and everybody around them feels left behind. Y'all need to hear all of this because the internet only gave you the surface. I'm giving you the whole foundation. Let's get into it. To understand how we even got here, we need to go back to Memphis, Tennessee, and understand who Gloria Woods, the woman the world knows as Glorilla, actually is before the fame, before the CMG deal, before F&F made her a household name overnight. Glorilla did not come from money, she came from struggle, real, documented, concrete struggle. She grew up in North Memphis with her family in circumstances that were not easy, and for the longest time she was just another girl from the city grinding with no guarantee that any of it was gonna pay off. She was rapping before the deal, she was recording before the label, she was putting in work when there was no check coming in, when there was no audience, when there was no co-sign from Yo Gotti or anybody else in the game, and her family was right there through all of that. Her sisters, her people, her circle, they watched her grind, they were present for the struggle. And when Glorilla blew up in 2022 with F&F, Let Him Go, the trajectory of her life changed in what felt like an instant to the outside world, but was actually years of work coming to a head all at once. Now here's what people don't always talk about when someone blows up like that. When you go from having nothing to having everything in what feels like a short window of time, the people closest to you don't always make the transition cleanly. Family dynamics that were already complicated get more complicated. Old grievances that were manageable when nobody had money become unmanageable when one person suddenly has a lot of it. Expectations get built, resentments get built, and sometimes the people who were right there during the struggle feel like they deserve a piece of the success, not just emotionally, but literally. Financially, professionally, publicly. That tension, fam. That tension right there is the seed of everything that happened between Glorilla and her sister. Now, I'm not going to name the sister by her government name because she has her own social media presence, her own life, and she didn't fully sign up to be at the center of a YouTube breakdown. But what I will tell you is that the situation between these two women has been brewing for a minute. There have been moments on social media, posts, stories, vague captions, that people who were paying attention noticed. There have been comments that felt like they were directed at someone specific. There has been energy between these two that was visible if you were watching close enough. The street's been talking about this for months, gang. The people who follow Glorilla closely, the ones who pay attention to not just her music but her life, they already sensed something was off between her and at least one of her family members. Some things were said publicly that felt pointed, some things were conspicuously absent. Like her sister wasn't showing up in content the way family usually does when somebody blows up and starts bringing everybody around. And then Glorilla dropped the song. Now here's where it gets crazy. Glorilla releases new music. And look, she's been on a consistent run, she's been building her catalog, she's been showing versatility beyond the party anthem lane that F&F locked her into in a lot of people's minds. She's been proving she's a real artist. So when she drops something new, people are paying attention to the lyrics, to the production, to the evolution of her sound. But this particular track had people doing double takes on the bars. Let me break it down for you because this is where I gotta put on the detective hat and walk through this like a timeline. Glorilla lays down lines in this song that are clearly, and I mean clearly, directed at somebody in her personal life. This ain't just general flexing on ops. This ain't just talking about haters in the industry. The specificity of the language, the detail in how she's describing the situation, the way she's framing the betrayal, this is personal, this is intimate, this is somebody she shared meals with, somebody she grew up with, somebody who knows her real name and her real story. The bars in question paint a picture of somebody who she felt was riding her wave without doing the work. Somebody who expected access, expected proximity to the bag, expected to benefit from the shine without putting in what Glorilla felt was an equal individual contribution. She's rapping about feeling used. She's rapping about feeling like people who claim to love you switch up once the money is real. She's talking about loyalty being tested and found lacking by somebody who was supposed to be ride or die. And this is where the internet started connecting the dots. She drops a line that is so specific, so pinpointed, that it can only be directed at one person. She references a situation, a specific incident, something that happened between her and somebody close to her that clearly didn't sit right. Without getting too into the weeds on the exact verbiage, the bar essentially calls out a family member. And when people started breaking down who fit the description, all roads led to her sister. Social media did what social media does. The Twitter detectives came out, the Reddit threads started, the TikTok breakdowns started getting traction. People were pulling up old posts, old videos, old moments between Glorilla and her family trying to map out exactly who this diss was pointed at. And the consensus that the internet arrived at, and it wasn't just random theorizing, there was actual context and receipts being brought forward, was that Glorilla had put her sister on blast in a major way. Now think about what it means to diss your own blood in a song. Like, really think about that for a second. This ain't even a situation where you're going back and forth with an industry rival. This ain't Nicki and Cardi, where you're two powerful women competing in the same lane and things boil over. This is flesh and blood. This is someone who has your childhood photos. This is someone who knows what your mama's house looks like. This is someone who was at your lowest points when there was no clout involved, no cameras, no money on the table. When you diss someone like that on record, you are making a statement that the relationship has deteriorated so far, that you have so much to say that the only way you could get it out was through the music. Because rappers, and I mean real rappers, people who actually process their life through the art form, they don't throw something in a song unless it's been sitting on them heavy. You don't just casually diss your sister for content. That's not how it works. There's real pain behind that. There's real frustration. There's real hurt that has been building and building until it came out on the track. But here's where it gets even more layered, fam. Glorilla's sister didn't just take it. She heard the song. She recognized herself in the lyrics. Or at minimum, she was told by enough people that those bars were aimed at her that the effect was the same. And she made the decision that a lot of people in that situation might not have the courage to make. She responded. Now let's be real about what it takes to respond to your own famous sibling in a song. Think about the calculus there for a minute. On one hand, you're dealing with someone who has an audience of millions, who has major label backing, who has a team of creatives and producers and marketers behind every release. On the other hand, you've got your truth. You've got your side of the story. You've got everything that happened that maybe the world doesn't know about because they only know one version. And her sister chose to put her side on record. And the response comes out and immediately the energy is different. Where Glorilla's bars had that confident, almost untouchable quality, the energy of someone who has already processed the situation and decided to put it behind her in the most public way possible. Her sister's response has a different texture. There's rawness in it. There's the feeling of somebody who has been sitting on a lot, who has maybe been watching from the sidelines as the world celebrates someone she has complicated feelings about, and who finally decided she had enough. The response touches on several things that reframe the whole narrative in a significant way. First, she pushes back on the characterization of herself as someone who was just trying to ride Glorilla's wave. Her position is essentially, I was there before the wave. I was there when there was no wave. I was there during the years when Gloria was grinding and nobody was paying attention. And the idea that I'm some kind of opportunist who showed up once the success came is not only wrong, it's disrespectful to everything we actually went through together. That's a powerful counter, fam, because if it's true, and look, I'm not in their living room, I don't know everything that went down, but if it's true that she was genuinely present and supportive during the struggle, then the diss lands differently. It's not just Glorilla settling a score with someone who tried to use her. It potentially becomes Glorilla cutting off someone who was actually loyal and just happened to not navigate the transition to fame in a way that met Glorilla's expectations. But wait, it gets worse. Because the sister's response also gets into territory that is genuinely messy in a way that makes this more than just a music beef. She starts talking about family obligations. She starts talking about expectations that existed within the family structure, not just between the two of them, but in terms of what blowing up was supposed to mean for everybody. And she raises the question, not in so many words, but the implication is loud and clear, of whether Glorilla changed when the money came in, whether the girl from North Memphis who used to be one of them suddenly had different priorities, different people around her, different standards for who deserved her time and energy and resources, That's where this thing cuts the deepest, gang, because that's a conversation that happens in a lot of families when one person makes it, and there are no clean answers. There's no version of that conversation where everybody's hands are completely clean. The response track also, and this is the part that really sent social media into overdrive, seems to reference specific incidents that the public has no context for. Private moments. Things that happen behind closed doors, arguments or situations or decisions that Glorilla made that her sister clearly felt were wrong and that she's now putting into the permanent record of a song. That's a whole different level of escalation, because now you're not just trading bars about feelings, you're making claims about specific behavior, specific events, specific choices. And when you do that, you're essentially daring the other person to respond to specifics. You're inviting a back and forth that could go very deep, very fast. Now here's where people started connecting the dots, because once both tracks were out there, the internet became a grand jury trying to figure out who was telling the truth and what actually happened. Let me break this down for y'all, because there are really several different layers to what's being argued here, and they don't all have the same strength of evidence behind them. The first layer is the who was there during the struggle debate. And here's the real tea. There's actually some public record here. If you go back and look at Glorilla's social media presence from before she blew up, her sister does appear. She was part of Glorilla's documented life before the fame. This isn't somebody who just appeared after FNF dropped. There's a history there, so when her sister says she was present for the come-up, that part at least checks out from what's publicly visible. The second layer is the what does family owe family when one person makes it debate. And look, no cap, this is genuinely complicated territory where reasonable people disagree. Some people feel strongly that if you blow up, your responsibility is to bring your whole family along, financially, professionally, all of it. Other people, especially artists, feel like the music career is something they built and sacrificed for, and they get to make decisions about who has access to it and on what terms. There's no universal answer here. Different families operate differently, different cultures have different norms, and the hip-hop world specifically has a complicated history with the take care of your people expectation. The third layer, and this is the one that gets into real he said she said territory, is whatever specific incidents the sister is referencing in her response. And this is where I gotta keep it 100 with y'all. We don't fully know what those are. We have lyrics, we have the emotional tenor of what she's describing, but we don't have all the context. And in a situation like this, context is everything. The difference between a betrayal and a misunderstanding is often just the full story that neither side is telling publicly. But here's what really happened in terms of the internet reaction, and this part is verifiable. The response track blew up in a way that probably nobody fully anticipated. It went viral, it got covered, it brought attention to this family beef in a way that made it impossible for Glorilla to simply ignore, because now it wasn't just background noise, it was being discussed at scale. And that creates a whole different kind of pressure on Glorilla, because now she's not just dealing with a family situation, she's dealing with a public narrative that she doesn't fully control. People who are fans of her but also believe in family loyalty are now being asked to process complicated feelings. Her critics are using it as ammunition, her supporters are trying to defend her, and her sister has effectively flipped the script from Glorilla dissed her sister to Glorilla dissed her sister, and now her sister is fighting back and the world is watching. The streets knew better than to think this was gonna just disappear after one song. So where does all of this land, and what are the ripple effects? First, let's talk about what this means for Glorilla specifically. She's at a point in her career where she's not just an artist, she's a brand. She's got CMG behind her. She's got collaborations with the biggest names in the industry. She's got a public image that she and her team have been carefully building. And now she's got a very public family beef that she has to navigate in real time. The calculation she has to make, and trust me, she's making it, her team is making it, is whether to address this publicly or let the silence speak for itself. If she responds in another song, she escalates. She gives the beef more oxygen. She potentially reveals more about the situation than she intended. If she stays quiet, she risks letting her sister's narrative become the dominant one in people's minds. Because when one side speaks and the other side doesn't, the side that spoke tends to win the court of public opinion, at least in the short term. This is where it gets crazy for real, because there's actually a third option that experienced artists have used in situations like this, and that's to address it obliquely. Not in a direct response track, but in interviews, in social media moments, in the body language of how you move publicly. Make it clear that you have a position without making it a whole song-for-song war with your own family. Now let's talk about the sister's position, because I think she's in an interesting spot too. On one hand, she's gotten attention she probably wouldn't have gotten otherwise. Her response track is being heard by people who never would have sought out her music independently. There's a real argument that this whole situation, as painful as it clearly is, has given her a platform. But that platform comes with a cost. She's now publicly the sibling who beefed with Glorilla. That's gonna follow her. Every interview she does, every song she releases, every appearance she makes is gonna have this moment as context. And then there's the family layer, which is the one that honestly matters most, even though it's the one we have the least visibility into. Because at the end of all of this, after the streams settle, and the tweets die down, and the YouTube videos have all been posted, these are two people who share a mother, who share memories, who share blood, and whatever happened between them, whether it was one catastrophic blow-up or years of slow-building resentment, that doesn't just get resolved by trading tracks. Reactions from the broader culture have been mixed in a way that says a lot about where we are as an audience when it comes to this type of beef. Some people are firmly on Glorilla's side, operating from the premise that when you blow up, you can't let everybody around you dictate your career and your resources. Other people have that, but that's her sister, energy that's hard to argue with on a pure gut level. And then there's a third camp, and I'd say this is actually the most intellectually honest position, that says we genuinely don't know enough about what happened privately to take a definitive side, and both of them might be right about different parts of this. What happened next in terms of the online conversation was that people started digging up old content, old posts, old videos, old moments, to try to establish a narrative about what the relationship between these two women was really like before all of this. And some of what surfaced complicated the simple narratives that both the Team Glorilla and Team Sister camps were trying to run. Real relationships are messy, fam. They don't fit cleanly into either-or boxes. Y'all need to hear the bigger picture take here, because this story isn't really just about two sisters in Memphis beefing over a song. This is about something that happens constantly in hip-hop, constantly in entertainment, constantly whenever someone from a background of scarcity suddenly enters a world of abundance. The question of what you owe your people is one of the oldest and most painful questions in the culture, and it doesn't have an easy answer because the people asking it usually have legitimate grievances on both sides. On Glorilla's side of the equation, think about what it actually took to build what she built. Think about the years of being dismissed, underestimated, told she wasn't good enough, or wasn't the right image, or wasn't what the industry was looking for. Think about the creative sacrifice, the personal sacrifice, the work that goes into developing a voice, an identity, a sound that cuts through the noise of an industry that is genuinely difficult to penetrate. When you've put all of that in, the instinct to protect what you've built, to be selective about who has access to it, to make decisions about your career based on your own judgment rather than the expectations of people around you, that instinct is understandable. It's human. On the sister side of the equation, think about what it feels like to watch someone you've known your whole life. Someone whose dreams you've witnessed up close. Someone you've maybe sacrificed for in ways that never got documented or acknowledged become something enormous. And then to feel like the proximity to that success is conditional, like you have to earn your place in the life of someone who used to just be your sister. That feeling, that grief over a relationship that has changed in ways you didn't ask for and didn't consent to, that's real too. The culture is having this conversation right now through the lens of Glorilla and her sister, but it's a conversation that could be had with dozens of other families in the entertainment industry. This ain't unique. What's unique is that it's playing out in music in the most public way possible between two women who both clearly have enough talent and confidence to put their truth on record. And here's what I'll say about that, because I think this part gets overlooked. The fact that both of them went to the music says something. Whatever else is true about this situation, both of these women trust the art form enough to process their most painful experiences through it. That's not nothing. That's actually a form of respect for the culture. Even when the content of what they're saying is deeply personal and messy and unresolved. What does this mean for Glorilla's trajectory going forward? I think it depends on how she handles the next move. If she engages with this in a way that's petty or dismissive, it could hurt her public image with audiences who care about family values. But if she eventually, whether through music or interviews or just a passage of time, handles this with some maturity and nuance, it could actually make her more fully realized as an artist, because nothing humanizes an artist like showing they're capable of wrestling with something genuinely hard. And what does this mean for Memphis hip-hop more broadly? Because Glorilla is not just an individual, she's a representative of a city, a culture, a specific kind of Southern Black femininity that has historically been underrepresented in the mainstream. When she wins, Memphis wins. When she's in the middle of drama, people who want to diminish her or diminish her city will use it. That's a responsibility she carries whether she asks for it or not. Real recognize real, and what I recognize in this story is two women who both feel like they deserve to be understood. And in that, they're not different from most people who've ever had a falling out with someone they love. The only thing that makes their situation extraordinary is that they have the platform to make the whole world a witness to it. What happens next is genuinely uncertain. Will Glorilla respond? Will the sister follow up? Will some sort of private reconciliation eventually happen that makes the public beef feel like a chapter that got closed? The internet wants answers on an internet timeline, but real family stuff, the kind that goes back to childhood, to shared pain, to who somebody was before they became famous, that doesn't resolve on a content cycle. Drop your thoughts in the comments, gang. Where do y'all stand on this? Is Glorilla in the right for putting her truth in the music, or did she cross a line by bringing family business to the streets? And what do y'all think should happen next? Does she respond, or does she let the music speak and move on? I'll be watching how this develops. And if something new drops, you already know I'm gonna be right here breaking it down with no filter and maximum respect for the real ones. Like, subscribe, and let's keep this conversation going.